so much more busy, bustling, maybe even a little manic. Bustling. And even though it kind of drives us crazy, we do enjoy the chaos every once in a while. It kind of seems like it'll drive us insane while it's happening. But I do find that oftentimes we look back on those chaotic moments and we find that there was a bit of fun or a bit of enjoyment that we were able to find in those moments. Though, of course, sometimes those moments don't bear quite as tasteful of fruit. Tasteful. Fruit. I've kind of forgotten how sensitive you can be. My apologies. I'll try to be more careful as we go on through here. In any case, tell me more about your week at work. I would love to hear more. You've mentioned before how you were a little nervous about that happening. How did you handle it? I hope you handled it well. And if you did not, well, I understand. I'm not mad. I can empathize with difficult situations like that. We all have them. And they are never fun, but they happen. And like I said, we tend to sometimes take those moments, look back on them, and find that even though they were crazy, there's likely a good chance that we learned something valuable from them. Anything else happened recently? Anything not quite as chaotic? Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that not everything was so high stakes as the previously mentioned incidents. I would hate for high stakes to be the only thing you experience at work. years ago now. Quite a long time ago. You see, while I was in college, I worked at a particular restaurant on campus. It was a McAllister's Deli. I primarily worked in the kitchen. I learned practically how to make every single item on the menu. Every kind of cold sandwich. Every kind of grilled sandwich. Every kind of salad. And every kind of spud. I was even at points in charge of the soups and the sides and the nacho plates, which were ginormous and at times quite a pain in the ass to make. There was one particular time where we were 1 minute away from closing for the evening, and that particular evening had already been quite demanding of the team, so we were excited at the prospect of getting to go home. However, before we were able to close the door, the entire varsity football team came into the doors. And I don't know if you're aware, but even high school football players tend to eat a lot. But those kids have nothing on a college varsity football team. When I tell you that we were a little upset, I of course am not giving our emotional baggage the proper qualification. But we of course had to make everything they ordered, and we ended up getting out of that kitchen an hour later than usual. But anyway, I mentioned this particular setting because of the particular aforementioned scandalous incident. So of course I'd be remiss if I didn't make sure I got to that particular part of the story. So, when I was working at this restaurant, at the time, we had a particular manager who was a pretty cool guy, married, had kids, and also I became very good friends with the main salad maker. She wasn't married, but she was in a long-term relationship. And unbeknownst to me and to my other good friend, with whom I would sometimes hang out with the salad maker outside of work hours on the weekends. At some point, the salad maker and the manager began to flirt, to put it mildly. And of course, one thing always leads to another. So eventually, the relationship did reach a particular climax. I learned that one day, the two of them had stayed behind after the rest of the restaurant's staff had left to go home. That manager was responsible for closing all the money that night, and the salad maker decided to stay behind for, well, not for any innocent reasons. I learned that at some point, of course, they began to flirt again, and they went all the way. And on top of the We all did get a good laugh out of it. But yes, the salad maker and the married manager, supervisor, I suppose is a better word for him, had the sexy time on top of the general manager's desk. And when the salad maker told myself and my other friend, we were of course aghast. Because again, we had no idea that such a thing was going on. What made it even more scintillating is that she had mentioned that unlike her boyfriend, the supervisor that she had hooked up with was the first man in a very, very long time to actually get her to climax. Ooh, the scandal of it all. But how juicy the story as well. Of course, eventually, the news of this particular affair got back to both of their respective significant others. Significant. And of course, they both had their own sets of repercussions to deal with. The salad maker's boyfriend did end up leaving her, though ultimately she didn't feel it was too much of a loss. She did cry about it, of course, because she couldn't believe she had allowed herself to throw her long-term relationship away like that. As far as the supervisor's concerned, his wife was, of course, very upset. And in time, I think she was able to forgive him. Now, as to whether or not they are still together, I do not know. Of course, that's because, as I said, this occurred almost 9 years ago. It often amazes me that it's been so long since I left college. Well, graduated college, of course. I worked at that McAllister's Deli from the spring of 2012 all the way until the fall of 2015. And then I graduated college in the spring of 2016. So, plenty of fun at that McAllister's Deli, though not too many scintillating stories like that. Did that story make you feel a little bit better about what's been happening at your work? Good. I'm happy that I could spice up your mind a little bit with a little scandal. Who doesn't like a little scandal? Especially those of us who grew up watching the likes of Gossip Girl. And of course those of us who lost ourselves to the scintillating story of Bridgerton on Netflix. I think I will always remember that fun little scandalous story. Especially the part of how they did it on the general manager's desk. Of course, those both individuals were eventually fired. The general manager couldn't exactly allow them both to keep their jobs, though, probably, and I believe it does, the salad maker was fired first, as they needed more time to find a proper replacement for the supervisor they would be losing. Eventually, my other friend, not the other friend I mentioned before, but another friend of mine, who had been working at that McAllister's for years, eventually was given the other supervisor position. Scandalous, and there were plenty. But working just at that McAllister's was crazy enough. Unfortunately, I think that might be all the time we have for stories tonight. I do hope I was able to provide you with a little bit of soothing joy. And of course, if you happened to doze off in the middle of my story, well, I suppose I can forgive that. After all, we come here for ASMR, because ASMR is one of the best feelings in the world. So if my scandalous story was able to give you some tingles, and if my aforeperformed touching was enough for you, well then, I am happy to have obliged. I will have to practice more and more so that I understand just how sensitive you are. In the meantime, I will keep your mind adrift with ASMR and scandalous stories in the future. Have a good night, and do not forget to subscribe. Also, if you are a fan of the Casual Babble Podcast, more content is on the way for that as well. Now, enjoy your night, and I do hope that you are able to drift off in a beautiful slumber. Good night.